Uh, Hi everyone. Uh, so I think everyone settle down, please. Thank you so much. So now afternoon topic is demystifying GDPR and its impact on India Inc. And it's by Mayuran Palanisamy, Director Risk Consulting KPMG. Okay, Mr. Palanisamy, all yours.
Good afternoon, all. I'm sure that more people will be joining in shortly. Uh, Fine. So, what is it I want to share with you all today is about GDPR. So, how many of you are with privacy background or have intention to work on privacy in future? Great. So, I hope that more people come in as, and I think we'll have more people who are working on privacy. So, with that, let me move to the presentation. I quickly want to start off with a reality check. Okay, so it's always said that people are more honest after they have a good lunch. Okay, so I hope to expect some honest answers. Yes, the first question is, how many of us believe that GDPR is applicable to our organization? Only two? Okay, 5, 6, or 7. Great. Next question. So, how many of us think our organization is GDPR ready? Okay, let me put it this way. Okay. So, how many of you feel that we are like up to 20% ready? Great. How many 20 to 50? Okay. Anybody above 50? Great. Anybody above 80? Great. Luckily, there's only one person who lifted hand. I think otherwise we could have stopped this session. We'd have spoken about Big Boss, which is a sensational show these days. Okay. So let's see what the world thinks. Okay. This is an outcome of one of the recent survey conducted by IAPP. Okay. So close to 61% of the organizations believe that they have not started the journey towards GDPR, and 23% of them have started the journey. They are still kind of figuring out which direction to move, and 11% believe that they are well underway, and only 4% claim. So I would like to underline the word claim, that they are kind of compliant to GDPR. So I believe that the ratio still remains the same here as well. So it's not that if somebody is worrying that you're not GDPR ready, you don't have to. I think the rest of the world is also in the same position. You can be happy with that. Fine. So I would like to put GDPR journey in this particular map. Okay. So I believe organizations will go through this various stages, I would call as, to achieve GDPR. The first stage is denial mode. So what happens in this mode is that, one, we believe that it will not happen to us, or it is not applicable to us. And from there, eventually you'll start worrying about, everybody is doing, it may be applicable to me, what should I do? So that is a worry state. So what will happen is, in that state is basically, we will kind of look into the sources like security, etc., to kind of rely on, saying that, okay, we are doing something around privacy. Next stage is the false confidence. So once we have a base to fall, so we will start developing false confidence, saying that, okay, we are doing great, or whatever we have is adequate to say that we are kind of compliant to GDPR. So there comes the reality. When something happens, some event happens, so that is where the hard lessons, the next phase, where you will understand, okay, whatever you had is not sufficient, and see that what is it you have to do. There is no state called absolute security, right? I'm sure we all agree with that, right? And finally, once that stage is over, there comes a true leadership. Okay, I think this is the phase where we realize, other than just talking about data privacy, we will also look at things like, how do we implement, how do we work as an enterprise together, right? So this is the theme of my presentation. So we're going to see how certain things evolve across these various stages. So let me start off with the first phase, which is the denial phase. So I'd like to show a small video about this. Before that, how many of you heard about phishing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So for the rest, this is the video.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and
Okay.
see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for usage information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com.
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right, thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the reality. So let's go back to the people who answered the first question saying that GDPR or privacy is not applicable to their organization. Do you still stand with your point or is there any change? This can happen to anybody, right? Right. So there are two things. So one is from an individual perspective, yes, this can happen to us as an individual. And as an organization, there is a possibility that somebody from our team or our organization, from our human resource, can do what exactly that customer service professional did. Right? Without validating the proper details, he has shared the data which is really confidential and they have gone to the extent of changing the password. Right? So this is reality. So this is the denial phase. Okay, now let's move to the worry phase. So what's the big deal about? So what is the paradigm shift? So if I'm just doing a comparison between how things were in the year 1995 when the EU directive was initially kind of came into existence, right? So there were like globally only 0.3% of the population had access to internet, and there were only like 91 million mobile subscribers. So how things have changed? So today, more than half or 50% of the population have access to internet, and we have 5,000 million mobile subscribers now. And this is going to change in the next 3 years, not too far away, 2020. We are going to have 9,200 million mobile subscribers. So what is it all about? What's the big fuss about this? So all this technology, the shift is going to accumulate more personal data, which is going to be available in the public domain, in your mobile, in your social media accounts, etc. Okay, so what is that can lead to? So I don't want to dwell much around these breaches because we all know about it, and we also know the recent one which happened in HBO, right, the Game of Thrones hack. So these breaches, I mean, it's keep on happening. So there are some interesting insights in terms of which is the industry which is most attacked. Okay, so we'll come to that in the slide. Okay, in KPMG last year, what we did is we did a consumer privacy survey, which was across some 79 countries, if I'm correct exactly. And we reached out to consumers across these countries to understand what is their opinion when it comes to data sharing with organizations, with social media, or with particular industries. So we kind of derived saying that which are the industries which are least trusted and which are the industries which are most trusted. So you can see that the industry which most of us belong to, technology, is one of the least trusted industry when it comes to data sharing. Right? And apart from that, we have some interesting insights below. So there are close to 50% of population who are comfortable in sharing certain aspects of their personal information, and less than 20% are really comfortable sharing things like their search history, their location, address, etc. And only 25% of the users have kind of encrypted their personal data when they use it. And there's one interesting insight is that there is no kind of correlation between the education level and the view on privacy. Okay, it is not that if somebody is educated, he has better perspective on privacy or he takes care of personal data better. So with that, let me move to the another bad news for the technology sector people. So we do yearly basis CEO Outlook survey, which is done by KPMG. So we reach out to a number of CEOs and ask various questions based on certain themes. So this year the theme was more around the disruption to growth. So one of the aspects which was covered or discussed in this particular survey is about how prepared are the organizations for cyber attacks. Okay, so this is the outcome we have. So though technology is a sector where we talk so much about cybersecurity and we take precautions to protect data, technically we are the least prepared when it comes to responding or preventing from a cyber attack. Okay, so with that, after seeing all this worrying stuff, I'm sure that I would have added enough worries to the worries you have. So let me move on to the false confidence. This is the next phase. So this is purely based on the interactions we have with our clients when it comes to GDPR. So these myths have changed over the last 1 year's time, but I'd like to capture a few of them, which is, I believe still a number of organizations still believe this is to be a reality. So one is, I'm not an EU organization, okay, because though I access EU residents' data sitting in India, I don't have any presence in the EU. So that's again a myth clearly, because GDPR is applicable to any organization who is accessing European citizens or residents' data from any part of the world. And very popular myth is, I am ISO 27001 certified. So I already have enough controls in place from security perspective. So that means I'm compliant to GDPR. I will not deny that this is a fact to an extent, but it is not completely right, because privacy as a concept relies on security controls. But still, there's a long way to go or claim saying that you're GDPR compliant. Just being ISO 20000 certified is not sufficient enough. And another view is that I have only view access. I don't process any EU residence data. I just have view access. So GDPR doesn't differentiate between what is the level of access. As long as you have any sort of access, you need to be compliant to. Next, the role, the DPO, Data Privacy Officer, is a formality. So most of the organizations, they tend to have same person doing multiple roles. CISO will be the DPO. Do you have any situation like that? I'm sure. I can bet on that. Okay, so one thing we have to understand is, according to the regulation, DPO is a very, very serious role, and there are a number of articles which clearly kind of puts out saying that what his responsibilities are. And another myth is, I'm just a data processor. I don't collect from the data from the data subject. So this is one of the key difference between the EU directive and the GDPR. So EU directive didn't emphasize much on the data processor. It was more tilted towards the data controllers who collect the data from the data subject. Now GDPR is going to treat both of them equally. So there are certain specific articles which are relevant to data controllers, and there are which are relevant to data process. I'm going to show those in the subsequent slides. Another popular myth is that, okay, I don't have any data in my server. So I have a cloud service provider, so all the data goes there. So I'm not responsible, they are responsible. That's not the case. Irrespective of whether you have your own kind of environment where you have the data, or if you're going to use cloud, you as an organization who is getting access to the data, you will still be responsible for the data protection. And there are more views like, I'm a small organization, I don't get much of data, very limited data, it doesn't matter. As long as the personal data, the same level of importance should be given. An interesting thing, okay, I'm sure that this most of you will not deny, privacy is more of information security function. That is their headache. Do we all agree with that? But do we agree that there's a view like that? Exactly. So privacy is not definitely just information security, it's beyond. So every part of the organization will have a role to play in that. Okay, so with that, let's move on to some of the lessons or the problems we are seeing in a client environment when it comes to kind of adhering to GDPR. Okay, number one, demonstrating compliance to the regulatory requirements. So the basic challenge we have is that first, we don't understand the regulatory requirements. There are different interpretations to any regulatory requirements. Okay, so the interpretation differs hugely between when it is seen by the legal team and by the technology team. I mean, that's a huge difference. There's a huge gap between these parties. And second challenge which we see is the privacy function, as I told, either it's considered as part of the information security part, or it's seen as an isolated function which doesn't integrate with any of the other functions in the organization. So they don't have any kind of connection with the rest of the organization, so they cannot push their thoughts to any of the rest of the functions in the organization. And another challenge is, what are the technical controls which need to be put in place? So there is so much of emphasis on the pseudonymization and data minimization, anonymization, etc. from the GDPR perspective. So what is the right control to put in place? This is another challenge. And this one, the recruitment and upskilling of resources, this is a huge challenge across the world because GDPR has created some 70,000 job opportunities in privacy, and out of that 28,000 are for DPOs. So obviously we don't have that many professionals. So upskilling is one way of handling it. So we'll anyway see the solutions as we progress. And again, the interpreting of regulatory clauses and developing framework is very much similar to the first point, where the interpretation are different between different parties. The legal team, they can interpret from the legal perspective, but they cannot derive a control from a regulation. On the other side, the control, risk and compliance, or the information security, they are good at looking at controls, but they don't understand the legal part. And one more challenge which most of the organizations go through is that they don't know what the PA they have. Do we all agree to that point? So we don't know what is the personal information we have from the client, where do we have it, and what is the data flow from where to where it flows, who is the owner of it, right? So now this is what most of the organizations are looking at. They're looking at solutions to identify personally identified information from the databases, like whether it's structured or unstructured, right? And adhering to client contractual obligations, I think so far, I mean, being ITITS organizations, we were kind of comfortable to sign any contractual obligations to win a client. Now it's not going to be a situation, because if you look at the penalty which has been proposed by GDPR, it's like 4% of your global revenue. So now we will have to have a relook at this attitude, whether you want to sign on whatever the client is asking for. And finally, the most critical one is that how do we drive this change management? So this is what most of the clients ask us. I mean, once we develop the framework, so we give them a kind of a data breach management procedure. So they really don't know how to drive this. Because one is, as I told, there's no integration between the functions when it comes to GDPR. Second, this is a huge change, right? I mean, people have to completely change from their perspective on personal data. So this is another challenge which we see in most of the organizations. So what are the solutions we are looking at? So obviously there's no kind of one-size-fits-all solution. This is based on our understanding or what is that we have come across in the client scenarios globally. But definitely you might have to customize according to your requirements. Yeah, so one of the key things for the interpreting the regulatory clauses and developing a framework is that there should be a cross-functional team where there's a representation from as teams like legal, your risk and compliance, infosec, technology, etc., to kind of understand the regulation and break it into controls or a framework. Okay, I know it sounds very easy to say. It is not that easy, but this is the only solution or way to look at this. Yes, so the second challenge is the upskilling or recruitment, where we don't have the skills. Right? So I know a number of infosec professionals are kind of moving towards privacy, which is a good sign, because obviously we cannot all of a sudden make so many privacy professionals. So this is more of upskilling. So there are a number of certifications, courses which are available in the market, which can help you to kind of understand the privacy aspects and also see how the GDPR needs to be implemented in your particular organization. Yes, so technology. So as I told you, we have solutions, we have recommendations from GDPR, but we have to choose the right solution for our requirement. Basically, we should not be kind of overdoing or over-engineering any aspect when it comes to these kind of things. So make sure you kind of understand the requirement and find a solution which is suitable to your requirement rather than doing something which is way beyond what is the requirement is. Yes, collaboration among the business functions or the cross functions is basically where, as I told you, number of teams will have to work together, because privacy is not a pure legal subject or pure technology subject. It is a mix of technology, legal, risk and compliance. There's an element of business continuity as well, because this may have a business continuity issue, right? So all of them have to be part of it when you kind of draft this framework. Demonstrating compliance to regulatory requirements, yes, various ways to do that. You may have internal audits, which is kind of a form internal audit function for privacy, or get a third party to do assessment on that. And SOC 2, I'm sure that most of you know that, have a privacy trust service principle. Right? So I mean, though it's not exactly aligned to GDPR, I believe it's good enough to give comfort to a reader saying that organization is faring well in the space of privacy. Yeah, this is again one area it's easy to say, but really hard to implement when it comes to creating the change. So one is awareness campaigns, and so what is it we have done in one of the clients is that we identified through the client some of the really enthusiastic people for these kind of things. So they became the kind of change drivers. So we communicate most of the things through them rather than doing classroom kind of training, because we thought that is more effective, because there will be people who will be kind of keen to follow them because they act as the leaders in a particular area. Yeah. So this is, we should have a clear interpretation of the clauses which the client is expecting you to sign. And wherever we feel, I mean, in India, mostly we are data processors, right? So there are certain things which may not be applicable to us, but we need to be very clear on where to draw the line, saying that, okay, this is what I'll take as responsibility. And as a data controller who is kind of collecting data from the data subject, they might have to take more responsibility than us. Yes, so this is about the data. So first, know your PII. That's very, very important. Know what is the kind of data you have, what is the kind of access you have for the data, and make sure that you inventorize the data. You should know where the data is lying, what is the kind of flow, who are the people who are accessing it, who are the owners of the data, etc. Okay, so that ends the hard lesson stage. So let's move on to the true leadership, where we start interpreting these regulations and where we work as one single organization, enterprise-wide, to achieve this GDPR compliance. So what are the things we need to focus on? Okay, so I'm just highlighting some of the articles which are relevant to the data controllers and data processors. So GDPR totally has 99 articles, okay, but it's not that rest are not relevant to these two categories, but according to me, these are the key ones. Somebody else may say something else is different key for that particular instance, but this is purely my view. There's greater focus on data protection officer, including saying what is the kind of role he should play, and what is the how do we designate him, what are the process for that, etc. And there is focus on the strengthening the contractual obligations. So this is key from the data processor perspective, because you're going to contract with the data controller. So what is the level of commitment you want to make? What is the kind of data transfer arrangement you're going to have? Yes, so one another thing which is very, very important from GDPR perspective is breach notification. So the breaches need to be notified to the supervisory authority within 72 hours of identifying the breach. So how do we handle that? So these are the three articles which primarily talks about breach notification. Yeah, from the data control perspective, what is the articles which are relevant to the data transfer are article 44, 45 and 46. I'm not dwelling detail into that because in a way it's a slightly boring subject, regulation, right? And there's greater emphasis on the data protection impact assessments or privacy impact assessments. I mean, GDPR referred to as DPIA. And records of data processing. So basically we need to maintain records of what are the processing we are doing, what is the kind of processing we are doing on particular data set, etc. And one key area which most of the organizations are struggling now is that data subject rights. So there is a lot of emphasis on this phase, this part of the regulation, because this was not there in the erstwhile regulation, where right to be informed. In case there's a change in the purpose of collecting data, the data subject needs to be informed on that. Similarly, if there's a data portability, if they want to change the service provider, we should be kind of have a system to ensure that the data we have on them should completely erased and handed over to some other third party. Okay, so we need to make sure that our systems are kind of equipped to handle these kind of requests. So this is one area which is not that easy to kind of do anything around. I mean, it may take some time for the organization to do something around this. And there are specific articles which are talking about the data controller, what is the responsibility, what is the code of conduct for the data controllers, etc. So this is by and large according to me what are the articles which are relevant to the data controller and data processor. Okay, so what's going to happen after May 2018? So we all know that the deadline for being compliant is May 2018, right? So what is going to happen? How it's going to change our lives? Yeah. So far we have been talking about being compliant to GDPR, right? So once we are compliant with GDPR, our thought process will be more around privacy by design. So how do we kind of build privacy in whatever we do? So let's assume that we are going to develop a system. So what are the various aspects from privacy which need to be kind of built into that? See, one of the concept is data minimization. So you don't collect any data which is not relevant to you. You don't kind of over collect data assuming that you can use it for something else. That cannot be done anymore after GDPR. Second, the role of legal team is going to significantly change according to me, because they will have to work along with the other functions within the organization. So they cannot be seen as one team which just looks into the contracts and give approvals. So they will have a significant role to play in the overall privacy of an organization. Yes, so there's going to be more strong control environment and enhanced technology. You might look at various technology like for data anonymization, pseudonymization, etc. So, I mean, it tends to be become more complex from technology perspective. Yes, this is key because you'll be subjected to more audit, because in this regulation, the supervisory authorities are given unlimited power to kind of perform audits on data controls and data process. So anytime they can decide to come and do an audit, so you may be subject to more number of audits in a year. And so if we go back 15 years, So that was the time when information security was reaching a peak, right? So everybody was talking about information security. It was a new, I'll not say it's a new area, but it was kind of a growing area at that point in time. So I think privacy will be like that in another 1 year's time. So there'll be more focus around privacy and like how it used to be for security. So I thought of quickly summarizing with few takeaways from our point of view. What are the things we can do? I'll keep it very brief. So one is defining a privacy strategy. We understand what is the environment, what are you into, what is the kind of protection you want to have on your client's personal data. So define a strategy around that. And be sure on where you stand. So this is where it's important, because otherwise you'll end up having a lot of myths saying that you're doing great, but in reality you may not be in that situation. So make sure that you understand where you stand as of now, be realistic on that, and take a very pragmatic approach. I would say more sensible approach, as I told, rather than overdoing anything or trying to be kind of super compliant to something, right? Try to do something which is practical, which is more sensible from your organization perspective. And this is, yes, coordinate to deliver. So how do we kind of form a structure where various functions in the organization work together to deliver this? And finally, this is a stage I think all of us want to reach, which is the epitome of privacy, I would call it. So embed into business as usual. So privacy by design is one way of doing it, but I think organizations are far away from this. So back to the journey. Okay, so most of the organizations which we interact now, I would say they are in the first, second, or third phase of this particular path. And I would say this has evolved, because if you asked some of the organizations who are in the third phase 1 year back, they would have been in the first phase. Okay, so I think there is some amount of awareness which has come in that they need to be compliant to GDPR, and they are slowly moving towards the true leadership. Yes, hopefully, yeah, by May 2018, most of the organizations would have reached that position. Yes, let the privacy journey begin. So that's it from my side. Thank you for being patient and listening to me. Happy to take any questions if time permits. Yes.
GDPR is more a EU-driven an initiative, right? Applicable to EU.
Yeah.
Any organization is, dealing with any data which belongs to EU, right?
Yeah.
European Union. So, is there any similar initiative or compliance from America or say Asia Pac or from an Indian government as a country? So, do we know about that?
So yes, there are, but I don't think those are as rigorous as GDPR. So this is considered to be the most rigorous regulation as of now so far. So US has more of sectoral laws. So for example, in healthcare we have HIPAA. Okay, similarly for the financial service organization we have GLBA. And after GDPR, there are a number of countries who are coming up with similar regulations. So there's one news about UK's decision. So there's a lot of dilemma in terms of once they move out of EU after the Brexit, what is going to be their stance on data privacy? So the decision they have made now is like 2 days back is that they will develop a framework or enhance their Data Protection Act in line to GDPR. Okay, so there are a number of organizations or countries which are coming up with similar kind of regulations. Qatar came up with something very recently, and Philippines, I think last November, they kind of came up with a regulation around data protection. Yeah.
Hi, Mayur.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. It was really eye-opening for me, at least.
Thank you.
So one question is, like in a matrix organization, in horizontal and vertical kind of organization, so who should be owning this program? Is it a central some kind of legal team, or the one which is very close to the operations?
Okay, so that's a very tricky question. That's what I was telling, right? So that's the challenge where most of the organizations have. How do you kind of integrate these functions and bring it together? So I will not say that, I don't want to give a one straight answer saying that, okay, it should be owned by legal or technology. I would say it should be by an organization which has the capabilities of both. So that is the only way you will achieve this, because otherwise it will become a function of legal, where there will be a different interpretation for the regulation. And technology, obviously we look from the controls and risk perspective. So we don't really understand the legality part of it. So it should be a kind of a blend of both.
Hi, Mayuran. Thanks. I think this was
She had a question, yeah.
it's a nicely summarized presentation. Just want to check, what are the data protection certifications you mentioned in, I think, 4th or 5th slide, the circle one?
Certifications?
Yeah, data protection certifications you mentioned in one of your slides.
Yeah, so there is one ISO certification. I don't remember the number of
So
that.
you're talking about the professionals.
Okay, certification, okay.
Data protection certifications, anything to do for the organizations where they can demonstrate their capability on the data protection or data privacy.
Exactly, so there's an ISO certification for that. I don't recollect the number for that.
Okay.
Srini is there, probably Srini. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yes, it's in the draft stage. Okay.
And another thing is, it's not a certification, as I told you, SOC 2 is one way to kind of demonstrate your...
Oh, but that's one privacy principle. It gives only reasonable assurance, not
Absolutely.
as good as regulatory
not
laws
a-
like in Singapore, and GDPR, etc. Okay.
Exactly.
Another one, does KPMG support in Article 35, privacy impact assessments?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So in fact, we have a tool for that. So I'm working on that. So far we had a very a small tool. We are kind of making it a web-based tool. So we are in the process of that. Sorry, you had a question.
The last slide that you showed about the journey. So you said that most of us are either in denial, worry, or false confidence, and we are still yet to go there.
Yeah.
The question is, with GDPR, industry like ours, like BFS, offshoring, we already have customers from US, HK, Singapore, etc., and we are going by OCC, PRA, FRB, HKMA, and so isn't there any overlapping at all?
There will be. See, whatever the
And we are still in denial in that case?
I'm saying the denial from the privacy perspective. So whatever the standards you mentioned is more from the information security perspective. So there is definite overlap. I mean, as I told you, the privacy largely relies on the information security controls.
True.
Right. So if you have that, that in place, that means you are compliant to an extent. That doesn't mean that you are absolutely compliant to GDPR. That's what I'm saying. So when I say denial, basically from GDPR perspective, because we talk to a number of organizations, the first point which we get is saying that, okay, I don't think this is applicable to us. The moment you think, okay, it's applicable to you, are out of this denial mode. So that's where I'm coming to.
Thank you.
So we'll take.
In a cloud-based situation,
Yeah.
third-party cloud provider, public cloud, who is responsible?
So see, from the data processor perspective, you will still have some responsibilities from their perspective, but most of the cloud service providers have enough controls around the data protection from the to satisfy these requirements. So you cannot say that it's purely data processor responsibility or cloud service provider. It's kind of shared responsibility. So one cannot say that, okay, because everything is hosted in cloud, I'm not responsible. Still, you're accessing that data.
Now, can you have a private contract with an individual to override these laws? Like you have a standard agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. So there are clauses which you need to kind of consider from GDPR perspective. So that has to go into the contracts. Sorry, somebody else had a question.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, probably 2.5 questions. Anyway, the DPO role, I mean, I know it's a significant one. Do you foresee, or based on whatever you've studied so far, do you think that can be an outsourced event? Meaning some of the roles and responsibilities of a DPO, can it actually become an operational activity done by somebody else, you think? Just
Yes.
an expert view if you can.
Yes. So I would take it from practically we are not seeing that case, to be frank, but I will take it from a CISO role. Okay. So we have seen cases where CISO role is outsourced, where loan staffing has been arranged for that. So I believe this should not be a concern from that perspective, but we need to understand what are the intricacies involved in that particular role, because they will have to kind of interact with the supervisory authorities on an ongoing basis. CISO role, I don't think there will be that much of interaction with any authorities. So that's the difference, but I don't see a reason not to do that.
Okay, okay. I was hoping that we know those requirements and we might be able to comment.
Yes.
That's fine. So if I'm going by rule of elimination, so if it's not stored in EU, does not relate to a EU individual, and not collected in EU, so it's not really going to be impacted by GDPR, right?
Yes, if the data you're talking is no way related to EU residents basically, GDPR is not applicable.
Because one of the conditions also, if it's collected in EU, it's again applies. Okay, even if it's a US person, but it was collected in EU, then
exactly.
it is applicable. So if these three rules of elimination, then GDPR won't apply.
Yes.
Okay, and probably the next part of the question, complying with those regulations is going to be a humongous task itself.
Absolutely.
So will organization benefit if they kind of segregate EU-related data or the impacted data into a separate can and demonstrate compliance to only that can or the container and not have to demonstrate for the rest? Do you see them benefit? Is it a way where we should look at now start segregating EU data?
Absolutely. So there's, we had an interesting interaction with the client recently where we had to do a kind of study on that client to see that whether they should be compliant to GDPR in India or they should move back the operations to EU. Okay, so obviously, I mean, if we can contain the data into a particular this thing, it will be much easier to kind of handle, the effort will be less. But again, I will tie back to the, one of the challenges we saw, right? So most of the organizations, they don't know what is the kind of PII they are handling. So if you don't know where the personal data is lying of any citizen, irrespective of whether it's US or EU, it will be really difficult to segregate. So that is where the challenge is. So in that case, it makes sense to do a kind of a blanket approach to kind of be compliant to, irrespective of what is the kind of underlying data we are talking about. Yes. Okay, so far there were a lot of discussion happening around whether they should just kind of follow GDPR, and the recent thing, as I told you, is that they are going to kind of enhance their regulation to kind of be equivalent or similar to GDPR. So what are the the areas the GDPR is being emphasized? It's being kind of covered in that as well. So in this period, I think either it will be GDPR till the time kind of they purely say that okay, we are out of EU. I think the moment they are out of it, probably they'll start kind of relying on their own regulation. I believe that should be out by the time. That's there. Fine. Thank you so much for your time again and for the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.